Good evening, and welcome back to Black Talk Platform, where I am your host, Dr. Deborah D. Jenkins, and my co host will be joining me soon, Pastor Anthony Davis. Tonight, we're going to confront um, a moment in American life that most corporate media won't name for what it really is. Not just a series of isolated headlines, but a concerted authoritarian project aimed at controlling the narrative, controlling dissent, and most importantly, trying to put Black people in their place. I'm going to pause here so that I can bring Pastor Davis in because this is a conversation best not had alone. It is critically important that we are able to confront the problems that are facing our country as a unit. And that is my aim tonight, to confront it. Hi, Reverend Barbara. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Obviously, we have some technical difficulties from week to week, and sometimes we have a very smooth broadcast. But tonight, I really need Pastor Davis to come on and join me because in my introduction, I'm going to share some questions that hopefully he and I can, sort of work through together. And when he's on, I will resume my setup. But when I say this is a conversation that's best had with a colleague, with a friend, it is because the heaviness, the weight of all that is taking place in our country, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I am learning as the days go by not to be reactionary, but I really want to be more thoughtful. I really want to be more measured because I believe when I'm more thoughtful and when I'm more measured, a couple of things happen. First, I am not just running to assist in putting out flames. I think I've, earned my chops in showing up for this or for that. And I will continue to do so, but I have to be measured in those responses. I have to ensure that I am doing those things that the Most High God would have me do. And so I need my co host, my partner in Black Talk Platform, Pastor Davis, to be here to help temper some of the emotions that sometimes I express. He has joined us in the back room, and I'm so happy to have you here in the green room, Pastor. I'm just going to go back to setting up our show for tonight. Then I'm going to bring you on. I was sharing with our audience that there's some questions that I want us to sort of work through, and I don't want to do that alone. So if you bear with me for a minute, I'm going to finish the setup. I opened by talking about this administration. And this administration gets worse daily, by the day, it seems. But tonight we're talking about murders committed by ICE agents. And I really want you all to hear me because as it goes in life in the United States, and I hate the cliche, I hate the fact that Black Lives Matter has become a cliche, but it remains the reality for those of us who are Black in this nation. To that end, we start in LA on New Year's Eve, where just celebrating the new year coming in, Brother Keith Porter Jr. was shooting his gun into the air. No harm in sight for others. Yet, on that night, he lost his life. So we start in LA, where an off duty ICE agent killed 43-year-old father, Keith Porter Jr., in yet another shocking act of state violence. He was shot by this off-duty officer during the administration's expanded ICE operations. And just weeks after, in Minneapolis, as we all know, Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy were both also killed by ICE agents. These are not random acts of chaos. They are part of a broader escalation of force and impunity under the so-called guise of law and order agenda. But this story doesn't stop with violence. It extends to how the state responds to those who witness and report on these abuses. Just this week, federal agents arrested famed Don Lemon, former host and anchor over at CNN, along with Georgia Fort, accusing them of crimes connected to their coverage of anti-ICE protests in Minnesota. They were taken into custody, hit with civil rights violation charges, and painted by prosecutors as accomplices rather than journalists exercising their First Amendment rights. Journalists who were documenting these events, in my opinion, should not be treated as criminals. But this administration is not merely cracking down on protests. It seems like it's determined to criminalize truth-telling itself. So tonight we have to ask ourselves some questions. Is this a pattern of authoritarian control over media, dissent, and Black resistance? That's the first question that Pastor Davis and I are going to consider. And next, is this administration intentionally trying to shape public perception by intimidating journalists and protesters alike? And finally, I would like for us to try to tackle, is there a deeper motivation here? Something that's aimed not just at undocumented immigrants, but at Black Americans, Black media, and Black narratives. Because when the state uses its full force to kill Black bodies in the street and then goes after the voices reporting on it, that's not just happenstance, that's strategy. So tonight on Black Talk Platform, we're going to try to unpack how these threads are not separate stories, but symptoms of a power structure that's pushing hard against Black autonomy, Black witness, and Black truth. Pastor Davis, let's get into it. I'm bringing you on now.
Okay. All right.
It wasn't you, it was me. Good evening, Pastor. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing quite well. I'm glad to be here as always. Always a pleasure to be with you.
I am so happy to have you back. As I was saying to Reverend Barbara, she was the one who was here with me, and I'm so glad to see my sister. I don't know if she's Dr. Mel Cruz yet, but the only Mel Cruz is in the house tonight. Yeah, it's a lot, Pastor Davis. I had to reach out to a friend who's also a friend of this show, doing some really great work for us as a community. And I had to let this friend know that I respect her work so much immensely. I totally do. And I think it is very valuable to our community at this moment. But I couldn't be really up close in the work, because that work includes an arm, a branch that will work with this administration closely. And I don't know, and I do welcome the comments from all of you, but Pastor, I don't know if that's something I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I do know one thing about this president, as we saw when he met with our new mayor, Mamdani. He was the one who capitulated, and he will do that. And my concern for my friend is that once they get in, that they will keep this strength posture with dealing with this person, because he has been known time and time again. Diddy would be out right now if Diddy hadn't said mean things about him.
Hmm.
He would be
Yeah.
part, you know.
Hmm.
And if you go in and you have an audience with this person, understand what you're going into.
Yeah.
You can read from his playbook, but I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to be a part of that, but I want them to be successful in their endeavors. And this I said before Don Lemon and Georgia Fort were humiliated
Hmm.
in this way. So you heard my setup. We're talking about Keith Porter Jr.,
Yeah.
who has gotten lost in the national
Hmm.
narrative.
Yeah.
My suspicion is that perhaps the off-duty ICE agent is also a black person, because it happened where he lived, where Mr. Porter lived, and it seems to be a predominantly black area. But does that mean that Keith Porter Jr.'s life should not be elevated to the same status as Renee Goods and Alex Preddy? And this does nothing. And for my words are not meant to take anything away from their losses.
Hmm.
It is simply to amplify how our lives just don't mean as much as the lives of white people.
Yeah.
Jump in right there, Pastor, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah. You said, yeah, I mean, you've summarized it uh, precisely. I think that is the issue. So now we're talking about the two white victims, and they were murdered, right? They were murdered. But I think it also speaks to the out when we consider the outrage, right? Because a lot of people are posting on TikTok and Instagram, black folks, intelligent black people who are content creators, who are serious about providing information in these spaces about what's going on in our communities. They've been reacting to the reaction to these two white people being killed.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting because it's like, oh, well, now you get to see what it's like to be murdered by the state uh, with impunity. Like there's no punishment for this, and they could do what they do. And it's this outcry. It's just, oh, now we have to respond and we have to do these things. And it. But when it came to us, there was always context. There's always trying to understand. There's always sort of excuses or whatever it was. And in the case of Keith Porter, I think some of the understanding was that, right? Well, he had a firearm, I believe. He may have shot it in the air to celebrate the new year. And the ICE agent came, and the stories conflict. I think Keith Porter's father is disputing the narrative, right? That he somehow pulled his firearm against the off-duty ICE agent. That doesn't seem to match up. Um, but anytime you have a firearm, anytime you're living as a black person, particularly if you have a firearm, uh, that's an entry or gateway for them to harass you and to shoot you. I forgot the young man that was carrying a firearm, Rittenhouse. I saw memes about that. People are looking at that when he was walking around with that assault rifle some
Yeah.
years ago at a protest. That
Yeah.
was fine.
Time.
But here's Keith Porter shooting a gun in the air. If you want to arrest him, okay. If you want to fine him, cite him for something, fine. If you want to he didn't deserve to die in that instance, right? It just didn't make any sense. But again, it's how that's contextualized when black folks, like you just said, our lives don't matter, right? In this instance, with these two others, oh, their lives matter. So even with the liberal white person, they still have that way of thinking that their lives somehow mean more. And then it's like we as black folks should now respond and be outraged and be super passionate about their situation when that energy has never been reciprocated or given to us. So it's a moment where we already know this as black people in America. We already know how it works. We already know Malcolm X already told us about the liberal white.
Yep.
It's not to say that there can't be an ally of sorts, but we understand that a lot of this fight is something that, you know, we have to do on our own.
Yeah.
Um, for a lot of people, this is their fight. For us, I'm not even sure what their motivation is sometimes, because it doesn't always seem like it's always about justice. I guess to some extent it is. Um, I think in the case of these two individuals that got shot, I think, they, yeah, obviously they sacrificed their life, for the cause. We have to give them that. But I think, it's still, at the end of the day, there's still this ideal, this thought that their lives mean more. And we have to, even with allies, we have to hold them accountable for thinking like that.
Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to oh my goodness, Victor Blackwell, CNN. Um he had the mom on this morning with their attorney, and I'm so exhausted having to listen to Black women, Black mothers keep repeating how a mother should never have to bury her child,
Yeah.
And I mean, as far back and actually much further, as Miss Mamie Till with Emmett Till,
Yeah.
it's just heart wrenching. And both of us having sons, right? And
Hmm.
it's not even only about our sons; it's also about our daughters. Um, these are thoughts that we have every time they go out with yours with their little lives, their budding lives, mine with their
Hmm.
young adult and beginning lives um,
Hmm.
themselves. And we want to protect them, and we are training them. We have exposed them. We've actually, Pastor Davis, we've had this same conversation on Black Talk platform
Yeah.
over the years. And that too is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you invoked Malcolm X's name. It's just a reminder. It's a reminder that we cannot afford to ever forget. I took 2 hours today to listen to my model, my mentor, and I call him my model rather than a mentor, should say, because I was not fortunate enough while he was alive to be in his presence. But Dr. Amos Wilson, I've talked about him often also. And he was talking about Black leadership.
Yes.
I didn't bother to go and do the research. I'm always talking about the Congressional Black Caucus and not in a positive way.
Hmm.
But I didn't bother to go and do the research comparing how many of them spoke out against the murder of Keith Porter Jr. versus how many of them made statements about the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
Hmm.
And in reality, every sitting member of Congress should have made statements about all three.
Yes.
But my chief concern is about Black leadership, and Dr. Amos Wilson was talking about its failure, like I often talk about,
Hmm.
and, people in black faces in high places, and I like how Congress, the Senate, sort of
Hmm.
hijacked the budget extension, sort of,
Hmm.
um, around the issue of
Right.
ICE. But did they really? Did they really put their full weight? Will we see something similar with with the House on Monday? And
Hmm.
I mean, it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me. And then, of course, thank you, Reverend Barbara. Let's pivot a little bit, Pastor, over to the journalist, because I actually had seen on your page today, Reverend Barbara, that it wasn't only Don Lemon and Georgia Foote. That two others, and I think we'd all heard about the two other journalists who have been also detained. But Reverend Barbara put on her site, on her page today, that the other two were also Black,
Right.
which gets into my theses at the beginning. This is an effort by this administration, in my opinion,
Right, right.
to put Black people in their proverbial places,
Yeah, yeah.
while also, trying to cap the voice of the media. Let's talk about that, Pastor. I could be saying that. You might not feel that, but that's how I feel.
No, I think that's a fair point. I think that's the consensus of most logically thinking Black folks in America, right? Um, we know who Don Lemon is. It's no secret. I'm sure we could say the same things about
Hey,
the
Brooke.
other journalists, but don't forget the fact that we're dealing with white supremacy. We're dealing with the pettiness that Trump has against journalists like Don Lemon, obviously, and we talked about how vindictive he is.
Yep.
And then it's the whole issue of with the church. I think the name of the church is City's Church in St. Paul, where they were protesting against one of the pastors
Yeah.
because of his he's some part of ICE, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so their rationale for coming against them or arresting them is that they were somehow violating their religious freedoms, right? It becomes this game that they play with the church
Yeah.
because it's like they are being persecuted in some sense for their faith, right? Here are these pastors, because we're seeing more and more of the boldness of these white pastors saying some crazy things out here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can see the sound bites, we can see the if you follow your Instagram feed, TikTok feed, Facebook feeds, some of the more recent things about 95% of the Black church is heretical or whatever someone said recently. Um, and but in this instance, that's what it is. That you have these pastors associated with ICE. Here they come protesting, and now they're going to make it like you are violating my religious rights. And it's an opportunity, as you said, it's an opportunity to put Black folks in their place. It's all about that. At the end of the day, it's about putting Black folks in their place. It's being vindictive against Don Lemon, trying to humiliate him because he's of his how vocal he is, how powerful he is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, how influential he is, how credible he is as a journalist. And
Yes.
so you need to put him in his place. You need to punish him
Yep.
for what he's doing. So this is what America does. And when we talk about even going back to the shootings, a lot of white folks get like surprised. But even in this past, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, in addition to Keith Porter, there's been about, I think, a total of 8 or 9 or 10 people killed by ICE, many of whom were um, Hispanic or from these countries, and they were killed, and they were many of them young people, and we don't really talk about that. And
Right.
the amount of people that have been killed by ICE in this by this administration, other presidents have had significant deportations, right? Maybe even more than Trump,
Oh,
but
yeah.
not with this level of violence, not with these state-sponsored murders. Like it's not that, right?
Right.
So it's not even about the deportations. It's the
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 manner.
fascism that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's the type of I'm not even sure they really care about the deportations per se, or just about policing and fascism and strong arming people and punishing people. I think that's their goal
Yeah.
in all of this. And Don Lemon is obviously the target. They wanted to do that, and they're going to make it. Like I said, it's going to be, well, you're violating our religious rights, and it's all part and parcel white supremacy and white Christian nationalism.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Closer to home, I don't know if you heard, up in Mahopac, that's in Westchester County, for those of you who are not in New York, which is right above New York City. In Mahopac, the city, it was revealed that one of their school board members, he may even be an officer, I'm not positive about that, is an ICE agent. And the people came out. Now, this is a predominantly white community, but throughout New York State, if you all remember, let me give you a little history lesson. Uh, During the administration, the former administration, President Biden had this back and forth with the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who just started sending busloads of migrants from the border to New York State, and they were disseminated throughout the state. You know, New York City was busting at the seams, so Mayor Adams started sending people upstate, and so they're in all of these communities, the migrants, right? And so those communities, this one in particular, they wanted him fired from the school board. Now, I know some parts of my audience are like Black only. I get that. I understand that we should be first. I believe that we should be first, right? But understand community. Understand the primary people protesting against ICE in Minneapolis are white people. Follow the story, because Pastor Davis just said something that made a whole lot of sense to this story. So when you go to Mahopac, which is predominantly white, and the whites are saying we want him off of our school board because they can see their little sleepy town becoming like a Minneapolis with ICE agents busting into their schools. And I'm not saying that they are not concerned about the migrant children, but they're also concerned about their own, as they should be.
Yeah.
But this man still sits on that school board today because they failed to exclude him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, people have to work, but the fact that he had to be doxxed in order for them to find out that they had one right in their community. The reason why they did not put him off the board is because it's an elected position. Mm-hmm. And in most parts of the country, except for New York City, probably, school board members are elected. You know, those are public offices. And so that is so close to home. Now, I heard today our governor is moving to bar any cooperation with ICE throughout the state of New York. That shouldn't be difficult, except for when you get all the way upstate, because New York State, upstate, it is very much like many places down south.
Oh, yeah.
Very racist. And I think that we can't afford, I mean, I don't think anybody knows this. In the name that I gave the platform, Black Talk platform, I'm talking about Blackness all the time. I don't think anyone can mistake anything that I have to say as not holding allegiance to my people. Mm-hmm. But I need for us to see that what happens to others, they're always, and I mean always, not ever a pause, trying to see how they can harm Black people. Don Lemon, Georgia Fort, who was arrested by DEA agents, that would suggest that there may be some drug and alcohol violations, not journalistic violations. Why is the DEA arresting this journalist? And if I'm not mistaken, Pastor Davis, she serves as the president of the Minneapolis branch of the Black Journalists Society. So she's well-known, well-respected, just doing her job. Both she and Don Lemon, and I don't know enough about the others, that Reverend Barbara, Mr. Jamal Lydell Lundy, and the other, Traham Jen Cruz, I believe. I don't know what they were covering, but it may be something that's related. And I agree with you. Thank you, Mel. They should have demanded that he resign from the board. They shouldn't have let up, because the threat is still there, right? The threat is still there for that community and their children. And again, back to us, whatever happens to other people, we got to stop. We got to get away from this phrase. And I think you were probably alluding to some of the noise in Black spaces in social media. This is not our fight. Okay, keep believing this is not our fight. For you to stand for righteousness, for rightness, that's not happening for other people, doesn't mean that it doesn't impact you. Keith Porter Jr. stands as a glaring example of one whose life has impacted this whole situation, and they don't care about us.
Right.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, well, you touched a lot of it, and that's, you know, I what I would say is I'm impressed with a lot of Black let's use proverbially speaking, Black Twitter, for lack of a better word, meaning the Black social media space where you see the conversations. Black folks, having gone through what we've gone through historically, we look at the history, we're not surprised by anything. And that's why the conversations are the way they are. We understand that our lives don't matter like that. We understand these double standards. We understand the types of reactions to our deaths versus someone else's death. And so we know that some of us might say this is not our fight, but a lot of us are correcting that sentiment, that idea, saying it is our fight for the very reasons that you just stated, because it's like the canary in the mine coal, in the you're going to, in the you know stuff that kills you. What do they say? Like when America, when Black folks catch a cold.
No, when white folks catch a
Catch a
cold,
cold, yeah.
black
Black
folks catch pneumonia.
catch pneumonia. That's what it is. And so we have no choice but to be involved. We have no choice but to stand up for righteousness. We have no choice but to do it, because at the end of the day, that's what we do. And everybody builds their idea of freedom and civil rights on the model that we establish.
Right.
Even now, when you talk to, there's even conversations about with coming from Africans, those who come from Africa, and saying certain things about the African American experience. Some of it derogatory, some of it, condescending in some spaces, not understanding that for all these groups of colored Africans and his Latinos and other groups that have been able to come here, it's on the backs of what we have established. Because there was a time where, when you had immigration from these European countries, Africans weren't allowed to come in here like that. There was laws that kept Black folks from other countries coming here.
Right.
It was the Black civil rights fight from Black Americans that fought for Africans and other groups to be able to come in and to migrate. So when you come here, it's because it's on the strength of what we've established. But people come here and think that they've done it. They've merited something. It's their intellect. It's how hard they work. It's whatever it is, not understanding. And they can say, well, you are lazy, or you should have done more, you should have done this, or you should have done that. And I realized that in order for you to be here, we had to do something.
Absolutely.
No one gave us anything. We gave it for you. So we've always been able to fight and understand we're never going to get our due. We're never going to be recognized. We're never going to get, there's always going to be a double standard or a different reaction, things like that. So some of us may say things, it's not our fight, but we can self-correct. We understand it is our fight.
It is our fight. And I think those who do allow themselves to self-correct are the ones who are actually the ones who will help to bring about the change.
Yes.
I want to look at what Mel put here. She said, I believe they are terrorizing white people so that when they ease off of them and begin to focus more fully, I suppose, on Black Americans, white folks will feel relieved and settle down yet again. And I don't disagree with her.
I agree.
Yep. It's a pattern that's becoming a little bit more frequent. It has not been the norm, right? They have not terrorized white people as they're doing today. And the reality is, I'm not sure in Minneapolis, are they fighting for the Somalis? Are they fighting for the Latinos who are here, or the Africans? I'm really not sure, but it is being led largely by whites, Americans, young, old, in between. And I do believe that, and this is just how I live life. I might be jaded, but history tracks what I'm saying, that ultimately all their goals are to put Black people in our place. We cannot rise, but so far. This man is still so mad that President Obama was the president.
Yeah.
I even heard that he threatened to have him arrested over the Venezuela thing. And we are dealing with a level of psychosis with this president. This is not a normal way for a democracy to operate. And you mentioned this being fascism, what we're headed into. All of his heroes are former authoritarians or fascists and dictators, you know, and he's only ever mad with any that he cannot control, who don't get in line with him, and otherwise he is promoting those types of behaviors. And
Yeah.
I think that this is a very dangerous time that we are in, and that goes to your point about ultimately we'll get it together, we will stand against these harms. Go ahead, Pastor. I want to get another one in there too. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think I also look, the American story is consistent. Um, America is a racist nation.
Yep.
That's just what it is, and that's not like an insult. That's not a reach. That's not a stretch.
It's true.
It's the truth. America is a racist nation, and we can talk about Trump's fascism. We could talk about what he has ignited, but it's already there.
Yeah, it
These
is.
people already believe that, and he is giving them the cover or the opportunity to be what they always are. I think we think somehow that in time with education, um, people will change, and America, white America, will see black folks as a certain. No, they just don't. There's no illusion here, and black folks, for the most part, we understand that. Now, there's some black folks that are still want to believe something in some like state of naivete. But by and large, I think a lot of us understand how the nation feels about us. And so he's what they need. He's the guy that they need. Because I can't believe people who I thought were friends, people who I thought were colleagues, close associates, that to some extent can align with him. I'm talking about my white associates.
Yeah.
It's like they kind of align with that. And then you begin. I've had to unfriend a lot of people, distance myself from a lot of people, shun a lot of people, turn away, and I've like, oh, you were never my friend. You were never. And so I think we understand that, and so what we have to see in all of this, all of us, this is how they see us. I don't care how much they sit in a Black Studies class with you in college. They're never going to understand racism. You talked about psychosis. It's a very deep, deep thing.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at something and it was saying, the Great Migration was occurring at the time where a lot of, we're talking about Irish, Italians, Polish, other groups were coming in to the States. And they weren't necessarily white. And the Ku Klux Klan, in many instances, were against these other groups of whites that came in. There's evidence of that.
Yeah.
But when the Great Migration took place, you started moving from the South to the North and starting to establish yourself and take jobs and unionize and things of that nature. These other whites from the Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, they became now part of the greater white populace, and they were able to be used against us, right? And they had what they had was that they were white,
Yeah.
right? And that could unite them and be against us. But if it wasn't for us, they would fight each other. We've seen that in their wars. We've seen that in their ancient history. They would fight each other. And so the fact that the two, Ms. Good and Mr. Preddy, got murdered shouldn't surprise us, because they're collateral damage to the overall well-being of whiteness.
Exactly.
And like the comment was saying, a lot of that is to get white folks back in order, get them
Yep.
scared, get back in line with being white.
Remember who you are.
Remember who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And what side you play on.
Yeah.
And they will retreat. And it was also Mel who said that they should have demanded that this ICE agent resign from their school board. I mean, they pay a lot of taxes, real estate taxes. They don't need that, but they're okay, because ultimately, just like, I mean, I don't know, I may be out on a limb on this one. Just like how Al Gore gave up his fight and everything pointed to him having won that election, I gave it up. Why? Because, here are these options: make $425,000 a year, or go off and make millions and millions and millions. It's your choice. It's your choice. And so ultimately, I believe a real ally sticks with you through thick and thin. They don't retreat when the going gets rough or gets tough. It remains to be seen how they will respond continuously in Minneapolis and over to St. Paul, because they are fearful that they're next, right? But I don't worry about that too much in New York City, even though I saw a post, and I'm just sharing this out here just in case people don't know, that ICE is back in Harlem. My thing is not so much, and I hope this doesn't sound mean, but this is truly how I feel. I try to be very transparent. My thing is not about the horrible way. It is horrible the way they're going about it. They're going about it in such a nasty, vicious way of arresting even the migrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
That dehumanizes a person.
Right.
I hate that. I hate that for them. But I'm thinking about all the Black elders who are still holding on to Harlem as the mecca that it is for Black life in New York.
Mm-hmm.
When they say ICE is back in Harlem, we know where ICE is, if that's what the case is. They're on 116th Street.
Yep.
And they may be on 125th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to do the roundup. But see, I know a whole bunch of Black Americans from Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and the Carolinas who are still in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
And the way ICE has been acting, I'm fearful for the elders and their descendants and their offspring. And so we have to stay vigilant. And we can't just say, oh, well, they got white people today. Oh, they took a 5-year-old. Well, his father ran and his mother ran, right? So they had to do something with him. And I just think it's horrible because they're saying now, Representative Castro is saying that the baby, and he's 5, he's a baby. He is experiencing depression and anxiety. He misses his mother. He's not really being able to spend time with his father. How can anybody be okay with that simply because somebody came here illegally?
Mm-hmm.
How can anybody? And these are the same people going to be in those white churches tomorrow.
Yeah.
Talking about praise President Trump. He's cleaning up our country. How can you clean up a country from a 5-year-old? What did that 5-year-old do? I mean, really? He's a baby. He's a baby. And so these type of situations should stir some compassion in all of us and still allow me to maintain my primary concern for my people. I don't understand why rightness has to be traded off. Can you break that down for me? Why does thinking rightly have to be traded off in order for me to still be for my people? What can you help me with that?
I think that's a question that we're trying to wrestle with in this program and trying to find some answers. And I don't think it's rhetorical.
Yes.
I don't know if we could ever really get an answer.
Yeah.
But it's something that we struggle with. And I think a lot of it is, at the end of the day, that's why Black Talk, this platform exists.
Yeah.
To grapple with that and to inspire that, in addition to the people who are in these spaces that are talking about it, right? So like I said earlier, that I'm encouraged by some of the conversations and some of the intelligence displayed in these conversations, grappling with the question that you just raised, that we have to be right. And Black America has always been the conscience of the nation.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
We're the ones that this whole protest stuff we started. This whole nonviolent approach to things we've started. The seeking to be humanized, because we were looked at as 3/5 human. We're the ones that demanded this Imago Dei that these Christians talk about.
Yes.
That we are in the image of God. We're the ones that, when they talk about the Bible and heresy, we're the ones that talk about humanity, love, loving your enemy, because a lot of these people out here think that in some of their conversations they believe that one of the reasons why they got to keep black folks down is because they don't want us to revolt against them,
Hmm.
right? They don't want us to be violent against them, and so they have to shoot us and keep us down and keep us, because that's the way they think, not understanding that black folks throughout the course of their history have been the most forgiving people.
The most forgiving people. I was
Sometimes.
watching I'm sorry. I was just watching something with my daughter earlier, and it was
Mhm.
about the civil rights movement. And George Wallace came up, and she heard him say segregation now, segregation
Yep.
tomorrow, and segregation forever. And I told her how he got his comeuppance, and that's how I see it. He got his comeuppance. Somebody tried to assassinate him. He was paralyzed for life. But to your point, what did we do?
Oh
What
yeah.
did the black people in Alabama do?
Yeah.
They welcomed him back in. They ushered in another term for him, and they did what you say we are known to do, forgive.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, hey, you know,
And sometimes to a fault, but what it is a reflection of this godlike characteristic, right? That I remember John Henry Clark used to say that, boy, black folks are the true believers. He would
yes.
say something like, we'd out Pope the Pope and out Muhammad Muhammad.
Yes, yes, he
he,
did. Yes, he
he would
said
say stuff like that, that we really believe this thing and we love our enemies. They can lynch us, they can burn us, they can shoot us, and they continue to do it
they
with
do.
impunity. And everything related to ICE and what they do is an extension of uh, anti-black racism, because it's all connected, it's all tied together. The sentiments against immigrants, it's not white immigrants that they're looking to do anything against, because there's plenty of white immigrants, and you can hear as the white immigrants talk, they're not as worried because they can blend in. They
They can,
they know they have a privilege in being white. There's a
yeah,
privilege in that they can hide behind their whiteness, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so everybody knows that when we talk about ICE or we're talking about fascism, at the end of the day, it's connected to American racism, which is also rooted in white supremacy. And
Yeah.
so that's what it is. So with that being said, God made us the way we are to have the type of leaders, prophets, uh, journalists, intellects, people like yourself with this space to continue to wrestle with this existential crisis. That's what it is, right?
It is. It is.
Um, and we continue to march on, because we're not trying to we're not out here killing people like that.
Right.
We're not mass murdering people like that. When we get frustrated, we don't go in schools and shoot them up,
Right.
right?
That's
We
not
don't
us. Yeah.
we don't do it. We don't bomb churches.
Right.
We don't do stuff like that. We don't shoot up churches. We don't do that kind of
We don't
stuff.
terrorize people.
We
Yeah.
don't terrorize people,
Right.
right? We don't bother people. And even when we do things within our own community, a lot of that is because it's all internalized, like a
Yeah.
powder keg,
Mm-hmm.
right? And no one really, and then we become villainized for that. Instead of anybody coming to give us assistance, aid, support, um, counsel, they don't do that. But we're not violent people. We're not. We're a people that care about community. That's what it is.
That's it.
Black folk, whether on the continent, in the Caribbean, in the States, wherever, we've always been about community.
Community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe that in as much as we don't mind living with others, other groups, we love each other. I don't think that the predominant black community is one of violence.
No.
As you said, there are things that precipitate some negative actions in the communities because of lacks of resources. But that's not the majority, but that is what's always played out. That is not the majority of Black communities. We
Mm.
love each other. We like to live with each other. Um, I think the whole issue of integration was one that was about resources, that we may also have access to the same resources as have been given to the white
Yeah.
majority. That's, you know, and when I say majority, because we already know that those numbers have flipped, I'm talking about those in the power structure. Um, that stratified group of people who remain at the top of the pyramid because they have had access to all of these resources, many of which they received off the backs of our ancestors. They never had to work for it, and it's been passed down. I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, um, that by 1900, the descendants of all enslavers
Yeah.
had gained back all of the wealth that they lost and then some.
Mhm.
And their descendants are living today. We're talking about 1900, you know. Maybe those people aren't living, but their descendants are, their children and their children's children are still the beneficiaries of the work of our ancestors. And so,
And even with the Great Depression, the federal government subsidized.
even with the Great Depression, right?
Yeah.
And even though they try to sanitize FDR, he deliberately excluded Blacks from many parts of the
The
New
New
Deal.
Deal. Yeah.
And that's a history lesson we might have to take up so we can school some people about how, as you said earlier, referring back to to Malcolm X, you know, the most liberal will show their slips
Yeah.
when they even feel pressured, when they feel that we're getting too big for our britches, you know. Um, she went into prayer for him. Are you talking about George Wallace? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know who you're talking about, but I'm assuming you might be talking about she went into prayer for George Wallace. Then he told folks to support her actions. You talking about George Wallace? That may be the case. And that's how we are. And you were just talking about us having a deep sense of community, but our faith has been strong.
You,
Now,
you- I'm sorry. One thing. It's like, and I think people need to understand that because we always talked about being violent. Chicago, no one has talked about. They've had the lowest level of murders and shootings, I think, in their history.
wow.
Uh, it was some unbelievable low number of shootings. I think New York City shootings. I know we people talk about the subways and different things happening. I'm not minimizing anything, but murders and shootings in New York City are significantly low. Like, so there's a movement even within our community to forget the streets.
Mm.
Like that, I'm not going to use the word that they use, but it's the F word.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
forget the streets,
yeah.
because we're realizing even within urban culture, hip hop culture, within those spaces, people are like, that ain't helping us,
Yeah.
right? So the negativity, and you see it in real time, where the violence from the negative part is waning and has waned when you look for the last 30 or 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
That the violence has, because I grew up in the 80s where it was very violent, but since the 80s it's declined. No one talks about that, and like I said, Chicago in particular, because that was known as that was the example,
Yeah.
right? But that's all declining, because I think, again, that's why I'm always encouraged. I listen and people are talking in a certain kind of way, and I said, no, people are getting it, and that the street stuff ain't going to work. Organizing, protesting, rightness, being right, uh, for the sake of being right,
Yeah.
is the way that we're thinking. I just hope it means something, because there is part of me that says the only one that could fix this is God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's made us his foot soldiers, right?
Mhm.
I think we and I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I just see it as the orchestration of the fixing.
Yeah.
And I believe that, like, I love to refer back to when Jethro told Moses to use what's in your hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for those who don't know, Moses was over here trying to put out small fires. You know, he took my cow and he won't give it back. He was arbitrating over issues that you had whole 12 other tribes with leaders of those tribes. And Jethro, who was not an Israelite, but a Midianite, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken,
Yes. Right.
came to his son-in-law and said, listen, your God has given you all this help.
Yeah.
Put that to use, because otherwise you're going to die. You're not going to be able to. And of course, guys, know that I am putting words into the biblical text, but I'm just painting a picture
Yeah.
of how God tries with humanity to fix situations that humans have created.
Absolutely.
And he'll
Yep.
always send a messenger to say, you know, use what's in your hand. What is in your hand? I love that you've been listening in different places across social media, and you're seeing this like groundswell forming, I guess,
Yeah.
of recommitted Black people
Yeah.
to our culture, to
Mm-hmm.
our community,
Mm-hmm.
and to our sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we have to be. There has to be a sense of an urgency that has for some time been missing in different segments, and this tendency to write us off.
Yeah.
You know?
We're unplugging from the empire. Um, we're unplugging from commercialism, even though it doesn't seem like it, but we are. People are cynical about, because everything culturally, and we talk about hip hop and things like that as an example, everything feels manufactured. Everything feels it's capitalism.
Yeah,
People can see it, that we're just simply a commodity.
commodity.
So we're like, well, that we're moving. This is our culture, not just some genre, not just something to be, you know, you can make money off of it, monetize, let's say. So
Monetize.
we're moving away from these spaces, and
Mm.
we're going back into to the essence of things, right? And you can see that we're tired of it. So you can see in many places, and I think it's going to affect us politically.
Mm.
So you're going to get a different type of politician emerging, right? We
Yeah.
talked about some of the candidates, some of the prior episodes, um, but there's going to be a different type of candidate, different type of spirit rising up, which will be manifestation of God in the way you're talking about. Right? This is why I still, even though sometimes I get a little fatigued, I still have more faith in God's being able to use people the way you're talking about, because that's how He always does it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And while it might not be universal, I am hopeful, as you are, that we will see a new type of political leader
Yeah.
rise up.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say, I don't know if you've been paying attention, and this was not on our topic, but because you did pivot to that, and I think it's wonderful in
Mm-hmm.
these last few minutes. I don't know if you pay attention to the former mayor and ambassador of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, or not.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Tell me what's going
Okay.
on.
So he was also President Obama's first chief
Yeah.
of staff.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, and after that, he left, became the mayor of Chicago, closed down 50 schools
Yeah.
in the Black communities. I don't think highly of him. Now, his brother, Dr. Zeke Emanuel,
Mm-hmm.
it's another case.
Right.
He's a doctor. Their dad was a doctor. Now, their other brother, if I'm not mistaken, only Mel, if you're still there, you might know this answer. He either owns, like, what's that site? Not Pornhub, but
Ooh.
OnlyFans, maybe. And I only asked her if she's still here because she keeps her ear on the brainstorm like that. So anyway, I like Dr. Zeke Emanuel, but I do not like Rahm Emanuel. But Rahm Emanuel is planning to run for president. And I think it would behoove us all to watch. There's never been a Jewish elected president. The one who ran the best campaign as a vice presidential candidate was Joe Lieberman, who passed away, I think, a year or so ago. He was out of Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. But I believe Rahm Emanuel has a very good chance of winning. We could talk about that another time, but I just wanted to put that in your ear. I think he has a really good chance. We can talk about it. It's going to be another show. Hey, Mel, do you know Rahm Emanuel, Zeke Emanuel's brother? I know he owns one of those bad sites. Let me see. Rahm Emanuel's brother, Ari Emanuel, is the CEO and founder of Endeavor, a mass entertainment and media agency. Thanks, Mel. I think it's got some stuff in there. I don't want to have him wrong, but Endeavor already sounds a little funny to me. But I think the fact that aside from Dr. Emanuel coming back out, he has a new book, which I'm intrigued by. But this is a whole campaign, I think, being led largely by CNN, because I stopped watching formerly known as MSNBC, now MS Now. But I don't know if they have him on all the time too. But watch how media tries to tell us who to vote for.
Right.
We're not even there yet. But he's got his chops cut on foreign policy when he was the ambassador. I forget which country he was the ambassador to. So you have to have a foreign policy dossier, resume. He's run a city, of one of the biggest cities in the country. He was the chief of staff for the president and all of that kind of stuff. But we can talk about another time, Pastor, about why you were shaking your head that is not going to happen. And it may not, but let me leave you guys with this before Pastor Davis closes out. One of the things, and this was really important to me because I had never heard it said before. One of the things I heard Dr. Amos Wilson say in the video of his on Black leadership, you can find it on YouTube, that I was watching today. It's about 2 hours. You got to have the patience to catch everything that he's putting down, because he was brilliant. He said personality. He was a psychologist, guys. He said people think that personality is a factor of psychology, when in essence, personality is a creation of politics and power. And the reason why I wanted to share that, it goes to Rahm Emanuel's pre-campaign. What Dr. Wilson said essentially is that all the people in power are the ones who are pushing you either into this camp or that camp. Not talking only about Republican, Democrat, but the things that you want to display about yourself, the bags you want to carry as women, the suits you want to wear as men, because ultimately that brings money into their pockets. So now, if you think about it just from the political side, we are softly being told who we should want the Democratic nominee for president to be, by them always bringing him out. He's also a senior something commentator or something for CNN. So be very aware. Keep looking at platforms like this and others who will tell you the truth and, turn on light bulbs for you, because the fix, they're already trying to put it in. And I'll end on that. Pastor Davis, would you close us out? And I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight, and keep coming back, because we're going to keep dealing with these subjects that are uncomfortable for some who may want to shut down both of these pastors, which is okay with me, because we have one person listening. That means that one person can go and tell someone else. Hopefully they'll tell someone, and it'll keep going on. We're not trying to race to numbers. We're just trying to debate these issues that are concerned to ourselves, impacting our families, and impacting the entire Black community and beyond. Okay, Pastor, thank you.
The presidency is connected to corporate interests. It's still, America hasn't stopped being America, right? Rahm Emanuel is scary. I think we need to have that conversation. I cannot wait to have that conversation. You're gonna make me do some homework because I have not paid attention to Rahm like that. Nah, woof, that's
Yes.
something. But yeah, it's something that we need to have a conversation on. And you're right, we need to be prepared because Trump is not going to be president forever, and there's going to be a lot of damage done
A lot of damage
on
done.
multiple fronts, and we need to start preparing for that.
We need.
Um,
Yep.
and I don't know who would be the candidates, who would be viable, who would be, but we need to start talking that up
We do.
so we can end on that. Yeah.
All right. All right. So
All
we'll
right.
see you all here again next week if the Lord spares life and all is well in both our homes. God bless you all. Thank you, Pastor. I'll talk to you in a week. Take
Thank
care.
you. All righty.